Good morning, and welcome to the annual stockholders meeting of ACEN. Let us welcome Mr. Delfin Lazaro, Chairman of the Board of Directors, for the opening remarks.
Good morning. The meeting will please come to order. A warm welcome to all our stockholders to the 2024 Annual Stockholders Meeting of ACEN Corporation. Complying with all the applicable rules, and after giving our stockholders the opportunity to call for a physical meeting in our notice dated March 11, 2024, we are once again holding our meeting virtually. In holding this meeting in a virtual format, we remain guided by good governance objectives, particularly to fully respect and protect our stockholders' right to vote and be informed. We also do our best to ensure the convenient and full participation by our stockholders in this annual meeting through our Ayala Group voting system and through questions sent to our Office of the Corporate Secretary email address. Joining us in this meeting are John Eric T. Francia, President and Chief Executive Officer; Maria Franchette M. Acosta, Corporate Secretary; Doji D. Lagazo, Assistant Corporate Secretary; our independent directors: Jessie O. Ang, our lead independent director and the chairperson of the Personnel and Compensation Committee and Corporate Governance and Nominations Committee; Gary K. Lester, the chairperson of the Audit Committee; Melinda L. Ocampo, the chairperson of the Board Risk Management and Related Party Transactions Committee; Maria Lourdes Eras de Leon, member of the Sustainability Committee and Personnel and Compensation Committee; and our other directors: Cesar P. Consing, Jaime Alfonso Sobel de Ayala, Nicole Go Pai Kim, Dean Travers, Jose Rene Gregory D. Almendras. The nominees to our board, our other officers, and representatives of Sisip Gores Velayo and Company, our external auditor, who will also validate the voting results, are joining the meeting through the live webcast. This meeting will have two parts. In the first part, our corporate secretary will inform us about our compliance with the requirements for this meeting, and if this meeting is duly convened, the voting results on the 6 matters on the agenda submitted for approval by our stockholders. In the second part, our management will report on our performance in 2023 and information for 2024, the corporation's continuing role in energy transition, followed by a question and answer with our stockholders. During this period, Doji Lagazo, our Assistant Corporate Secretary, will read the questions or comments received before 9:30 a.m. today. We now proceed to the first part of the meeting. Madam Secretary, is this meeting duly convened?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this meeting is duly convened because we have complied with the requirements under our bylaws and the applicable rules of the Securities and Exchange Commission. First, our stockholders have been duly notified of this meeting. On March 27, 2024, we distributed to our stockholders the notice of the annual stockholders meeting by posting on our corporation's website and by disclosure to the Philippine Stock Exchange. In addition, on April 2, 2024, we sent the notice together with a link to the information statement by email to our stockholders with email addresses on record. The notice was also published on print and online on April 2, 2024 and April 3, 2024 in the Business World and the Philippine Star. Second, adequate information has been provided to our stockholders on matters submitted for their approval, the voting procedures, and other matters that our corporation is required to provide information on under the Securities Regulation Code and Revised Corporation Code. Moreover, during this meeting, our stockholders present through our live webcast may send their questions or comments to corpsec.acen@acenrenewables.com. Third and finally, Mr. Chairman, there is a quorum for this meeting. Present in this meeting by proxy or remote communication or voting in absentia are stockholders owning at least 31,617,532,926 shares, representing 79.62% of the 39,702,394,773 total outstanding shares. The breakdown of the stockholders present in terms of mode of attendance will be reflected in the minutes.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. You may now please present the matter submitted for voting by our stockholders, as well as the voting results.
Mr. Chairman, there are 6 matters on the agenda for voting by our stockholders. Before I present the voting results, please allow me to mention that the stockholders voted on the proposed resolutions either by appointing the chairman as proxy, pursuant to the voting instructions of stockholders, or by electronic ballot via the voting in absentia system or the Ayala Group voting system. The stockholders could cast their votes beginning April 15, 2024, and may continue to do so until the end of this meeting through the electronic voting via the Ayala Group voting system. We have tabulated the votes cast as of April 17, 2024, after the end of the proxy validation and preliminary tabulation process. These votes are from stockholders owning 31,617,532,926 shares, representing 99.98% of the total outstanding voting shares represented in this meeting, and 79.62% of the total outstanding shares. I will be referring to the results of this preliminary tabulation when I report the voting results of each resolution. The results of the final tabulation, with full details of the affirmative and negative votes and abstentions, will be reflected in the minutes of this meeting. Mr. Chairman, let me now present the voting results. The first matter for the voting by our stockholders is the approval of the minutes of the annual stockholders meeting held on April 24, 2023. Resolution number S-2024-01, which is shown on the screen, has been proposed for adoption by the stockholders. Stockholders owning 31,566,990,550 common shares, or 99.84% of the total outstanding voting shares represented in this meeting, voted to approve the minutes and the resolution. Therefore, the resolution number S-2024-01 has been approved. Mr. Chairman, our stockholders may continue to access the minutes through the link provided to them with the meeting materials or through the corporation's website. The second matter for voting by our stockholders is the ratification of all the acts and resolutions adopted from April 24, 2023 until today by our board, executive committee, and other board committees exercising powers delegated by the board, as well as the acts of our officers from April 24, 2023 to date, performed in the general conduct of our business or in accordance with the resolutions of the board, the executive committee, and other board committees and of our bylaws. These acts and resolutions of our board and its committees are reflected in the minutes of the meetings and include appointment of new officers and chairman of the board, appointment of signatories, treasury transactions, investments, matters covered by disclosures to the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Philippine Stock Exchange. For this matter, Resolution number S-2024-02 has been proposed for adoption by the stockholders. The resolution is now shown on the screen. Stockholders owning 31,470,917,662 common shares, or 99.54% of the total outstanding voting shares represented in this meeting have voted for the adoption of Resolution number S-2024-02. Therefore, the resolution has been adopted.
Thank you. The third matter for the voting by our stockholders is the proposed amendment to the corporation's Articles of Incorporation. Mr. Francia will explain this item.
Mr. Chairman, our Board of Directors has approved for endorsement to the stockholders the proposed amendment to the Articles of Incorporation of the corporation to remove distribution from the primary purpose of the corporation. The proposed amendment, Mr. Chairman, is meant to underscore the corporation's focus on its core business of renewable energy generation and is meant to clarify the regulatory requirements applicable to the corporation considering the actual business that it is engaged in.
Madam Secretary, please present the proposed resolution on this item as well as the voting results.
Mr. Chairman, for this matter, Resolution number S-2024-03 has been proposed for adoption by the stockholders. The resolution is now shown on the screen. Stockholders owning 31,472,994,650 shares, or 79.27% of the corporation's total outstanding shares, have voted for the adoption of Resolution number S-2024-03. Therefore, the resolution has been adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The fourth matter.
The fourth matter for the voting by our stockholders is the election of directors. The Corporate Governance and Nomination Committee of the Board has determined that the following 11 duly nominated stockholders, including the nominees for independent directors, are qualified to serve as directors of the corporation for the ensuing term. Nominated as regular directors are the following: Gerardo C. Ablaza, Jr., Cesar P. Consing, Jaime Alfonso E. Zobel de Ayala, John Eric T. Francia, Jaime Z. Urquijo, Nicole Go Fick Kim, and Dean L. Travers. Nominated as independent directors are the following: Jessie O. Ang, Maria Lourdes Heras de Leon, Gary K. Lester, Melinda L. Ocampo. All the nominees have given their consent to their respective nominations. For this matter, Resolution Number S-2024-04 has been proposed for adoption by the stockholders. The resolution is now shown on the screen. Each of the 11 nominees for directors has garnered at least 31,416,328,714 votes from holders of common shares, receiving enough votes for election to the board effective as at the adjournment of this meeting. Resolution Number S-2024-04 has been approved.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We can now go to the fifth matter.
The fifth matter for voting by our stockholders is the election of CICIP Gores Velayo and Company as our external auditor for 2024 for an audit fee of 2,700,000 pesos, exclusive of value-added tax and out-of-pocket expenses. The Audit Committee and the Board are endorsing this matter for stockholders' approval, and Resolution Number S-2024-05, which is shown on the screen, has been proposed for adoption by the stockholders. Stockholders owning 31,367,787,257 common shares, or 99.21% of the total outstanding voting shares represented in this meeting, voted in favor of Resolution Number S-2024-05 for the election of SGV and Company as the corporation's external auditor and the fixing of its remuneration. Thereby, the resolution has been approved.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We can now go to the sixth matter.
The sixth and final matter for the voting by our stockholders is the approval of the consolidated audited financial statements of the corporation and its subsidiaries and the parent company financial statements of the corporation as of December 31, 2023, as audited by its external auditor, CICIP Gores Velayo and Co., and the noting of the corporation's annual report. The financial statements are part of the definitive information statement, and the annual report is accessible from the corporation's website. For this matter, Resolution Number S-2024-06 has been proposed for adoption by the stockholders. The resolution is now shown on the screen. Stockholders owning 31,564,913,562 common shares, or 99.83% of the total outstanding voting shares represented in this meeting, have voted for the adoption of Resolution Number S-2024-06 for the approval of the consolidated audited financial statements of the corporation and its subsidiaries and the noting of the corporation's annual report. As such, the resolution has been approved. Mr. Chairman, this concludes all the matters for stockholders' approval in today's meeting, and there are no other matters for consideration. Stockholders were notified that they may submit proposals for agenda items, but we have received none.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We now proceed to part 2 of this meeting. The next item on the agenda is the presentation of management, which consists of a message from the chairman, the president's report, and an audio-visual presentation. Dear fellow shareholders, we are pleased to report that 2023 turned out to be another strong year for your company. we saw significant growth in financial performance and added over 700 megawatts of attributable renewables capacity in 2023. Now, with over 4.7 gigawatts, ACEN is poised to achieve its original 2025 goal of 5 gigawatts of renewables capacity, nearly 2 years ahead of schedule. Progress towards the new 2030 aspiration of 20 gigawatts has thus continued at a steady pace. The accelerating shift to a low-carbon future has nurtured several tailwinds for the growth of renewables. Within ACEN, we have a deep development pipeline to take on these opportunities. Equally important, the company has a talented, motivated team to execute and deliver. I believe that the company is in a strong position to continue its healthy trajectory. And I feel that it's now the right time for me to transition the chairman of the board and step down as a director. It has been a privilege to serve on the board, and I would like to thank my fellow directors and all ACEN employees for their active engagement, excellent work, and untiring commitment. I am also grateful to our partners, customers, shareholders, and the rest of our stakeholder community for their trust in ACEN. Thank you. I now turn you over to President and Chief Executive Officer, John Eric Francia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Fellow shareholders, my colleagues on the board and management, good morning to all of you. 2023 saw some reprieve from the global energy crisis, with fuel prices coming off from historic highs. With that said, energy demand continues to grow, and the imperative to transition from fossil fuels to clean energy remains intact. The company continues to execute on its renewables expansion across our key markets in the Philippines, Australia, Vietnam, India, Indonesia, Laos, and the US. ACEN currently has around 4.7 gigawatts of renewables capacity in operations and under construction. And in addition, the company has signed agreements or won competitive tenders worth over 1 gigawatts of capacity. This effectively surpasses the company's goal of reaching 5 gigawatts of renewables by 2025, or almost 2 years ahead of schedule. Attributable output from ACEN's renewable energy plants increased 32% in 2023 to 4,474 gigawatt hours. As a result, our attributable EBITDA for the year grew 31% to 18.8 billion pesos. Reported net income for the year stood at 7.4 billion pesos. This represented a decline versus 2022 reported net income of 13 billion pesos, which included around 8.6 billion pesos in net non-cash items. Taking out all non-cash items, ACEN's profitability increased 150% year over year, driven by nearly threefold increase in core operating earnings. The Philippines continues to be our core market, accounting for about 40% of our generation portfolio. Our Philippine renewables output increased 35% to 1,145 gigawatt hours, with the commissioning of new solar and wind farms. Our retail electricity business, ACEN RES, also grew by 54% to 218 megawatts. The significant increase in capacity resulted in a net seller position for the Philippine business amidst elevated electricity prices. This resulted in a robust financial performance. Overseas, Australia is our largest market, comprising around 20% of our generation portfolio capacity, and we successfully commenced operations of our first project in Australia, the 521 megawatt New England solar farm, one of the largest solar farms in Australia. Construction progress is also underway for the 520 megawatt Stabo solar farm, which is around halfway to completion. Our large construction projects in the Philippines, Australia, and India faced execution challenges, mostly related to grid connectivity, extreme weather conditions, and right-of-way issues. However, many of these plants successfully commenced full operations by the end of 2023, and in fact, 6 new projects worth 1.6 gigawatts have recently started operations and are expected to deliver close to full-year output in 2024. Today, ACEN has over 3.3 gigawatts of capacity in operations and under commissioning, and about 1.5 gigawatts of capacity under construction. We expect to continue our rapid expansion through 2024 as we work towards our aspiration to reach 20 gigawatts of renewables capacity by 2030. To support the strong growth trajectory, the company successfully raised 25 billion pesos of perpetual preferred shares in 2023. This included a fixed-for-life coupon with no step-up, the first of its kind in the country, and this additional equity further strengthens our balance sheet and allows us to leverage the growth momentum. Meanwhile, ACEN continues to play a leading role in the energy transition in the region. In addition to scaling up renewables, the company is also pioneering efforts in early coal retirement. At COP28 in Dubai last December, ACEN, together with the Rockefeller Foundation's Coal to Clean Credit Initiative, or 3CI, and the Monetary Authority of Singapore, or MAS, announced an exciting collaboration to implement the world's first coal to clean credit pilot project. This initiative will help road test the new methodology being developed by 3CI and hopefully jumpstart the market for transition credits. Transition credits are high-integrity carbon credits that are granted to projects that enable the early retirement of coal plants and their replacement with clean energy while ensuring a just transition. This initiative complements ACEN's Energy Transition Mechanism, or ETM, for the 246-megawatt SLTech coal plant, which targets a retirement date of 2040 or after 25 years of plant operations. The Transition Credit Initiative will potentially accelerate the transition of coal to cleaner technology by 10 years or as early as 2030. If successful, this can be scaled up and replicated by other coal-fired power plants, not only in the Philippines, but across the globe. Before I end my report, I would like to acknowledge some key transitions in the board. I would like to thank our chairman, Mr. Delfin Lazaro, and our director, Mr. Rene Almendras, both of whom were former energy secretaries of the Republic. The company was very fortunate to benefit from their wisdom and support. As leaders who understand the critical importance of energy security, both Del and Rene have been strong advocates of ACEN's renewables expansion in the Philippines, including our investments in large-scale infrastructure to enable giga-scale renewable projects that move the needle for the company and the country. Del and Rene have also consistently provided guidance on balancing growth with strong risk management and a robust balance sheet. On behalf of all my colleagues, we thank Del and Rene for having consistently championed and guided ACEN throughout the years. We also welcome the opportunity to work with our incoming directors, Mr. Gerardo Ablaza and Mr. Jaime Urquijo. Both Jerry and Jaime are no strangers to the company, having previously been with ACEN board and management, respectively. I would also like to thank Attorney Mon Hermosura for his exceptional contributions as corporate secretary, and very much welcome his successor, Attorney Franchette Acosta. In closing, I thank our board of directors for its guidance, our management team, and all our employees for their engagement and rigor, and our business partners, shareholders, and our many stakeholders for their continued trust and support. At this point, I'm delighted to present a special video that underpins our journey towards effectively surpassing our 5-gigawatt renewables target. Thank you so much.
now address questions and comments from stockholders. I will read aloud questions and comments received in advance through email, together with the names of the stockholders who sent them. As mentioned by Ms. Acosta earlier, management will reply by email to questions and comments not taken up during the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we received a question from a stockholder who identified herself as Genevieve Montenegro. Her question is, your growth path to 2030 is quite ambitious. How will you fund your capacity expansion moving forward?
Eric, would you like to take this question?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Currently, as I mentioned, we're approximately at 5 gigawatts of renewables, which means that the gap between today and our aspiration of 20 gigawatts is around 15 gigawatts, or 15,000 megawatts. At current costs, approximately the capital cost for renewables is roughly $1 million per megawatt. It's over $1 million for wind, under $1 million for solar. So roughly speaking, we would be needing around $15 billion of capital to reach our 20 gigawatts goal. We do expect around 60% of the funding, or $9 billion, to come from debt financing, both from bilateral loans or the debt capital markets. There is a quite strong liquidity within those sources. 40% roughly will come from equity funding, or about $6 billion. And this will come in the form of, number one, reinvestment of operating cash flows from the operating plants. Number two, proceeds from targeted value realization and capital recycling activities. And number three, potential equity issuances over time. We do have quite a strong balance sheet. We ended the year in 2023 with a strong cash position of almost 40 billion pesos in cash, as well as a robust debt-to-equity ratio standing at about 0.23 net debt-to-equity ratio. So we have a lot of room to expand our balance sheet to support our aggressive growth, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Doji, are there any other questions?
We do, Mr. Chairman. We received another question, this time from a stockholder named Aaron Ho. Mr. Ho's question is, what accounts for ACEN's recent share price performance?
Eric?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Obviously, we've seen a decline in the share price performance of ACEN over the last 12 or so months. I believe there are really two drivers for this. One is macro, and another one is micro in nature. On the macro condition, ACEN is a growth company, and growth companies globally have been significantly affected by the rise in interest rates. If you look at globally, renewable energy companies that represent growth have declined in market values. We've seen market values decline by 50+% globally among renewable energy companies. There's also been renewed investor interest into fossil fuel-based companies with stronger profits given the elevated fossil fuel prices. That being said, we believe that our sector still goes through cycles in the sector. Once interest rates taper or becomes reduced, these are opportunities for the growth to accelerate. And again, clearly, not a lot of capacity, fossil fuel-fired capacity, is being built. Coal plants, for example, are already under moratorium in markets like Philippines and Indonesia. So the way to go moving forward really is focused on accelerating and scaling renewable energy, so we will stay the course. Secondly, on the micro level, the company has been challenged, as I mentioned in my message earlier, with delays in the execution of these large-scale renewable projects in Australia, Philippines, and India. These are projects that start at 400 or 500 megawatts and can scale up to more than 1,000 megawatts. And what we're experiencing really is the challenge of building and connecting these large projects into the transmission can be challenging right-of-way issues and the conservativeness of the grid operator to incorporate these large renewable into the system takes time. So, but having said that, as we mentioned, we are over the hump on many of these large-scale projects. We continue to develop others, but we are now in a strong position, having started the construction of several of these projects. And as I mentioned, we have started 6 projects worth 1.6 gigawatts earlier this year or late last year, and we expect additional contribution of over 3,000 gigawatt hours of output from these newly commissioned plants. So it's been quite a challenging and rocky execution and getting to commercial operations, but we are there for these large-scale projects, and the ability to expand on these large-scale upfront transmission infrastructure is an opportunity for us to amortize all of those upfront investments.
Thank you. Any other questions, Doji?
We have one more question, Mr. Chairman, from a stockholder identifying himself as John Fernand Magcanlas. He emailed the following question. We heard about your new partnership to introduce transition credits. Why are you doing this, and how will this impact your business?
I think you answered part of that in your talk, but maybe you can explain a little bit more.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think the angle that I didn't cover in my talk is, as we are now focused on renewable energy, we see this opportunity to build on what we've done on the energy transition mechanism structure of SLTech. We see an opportunity to further accelerate the timeline from a coal retirement or transition date of 2040 to 2030. The transition credits will actually be a mechanism to fund at least 2 major things. One is there will be replacement of the foregone cash flows from the coal plant. ACEN remains as an off-taker, if you recall, of SLTech, and the foregone cash flows of SLTech's operations as well as ACEN's off-take arrangement will be replaced by the transition credit, so there will be compensation and the ability to pay down the debt and equity holders, and any residual equity that goes to ACEN can be recycled to invest in renewable energy. The second use of funds from the transition credits is actually to help ACEN replace the foregone energy output of SLTech and help ACEN to install new replacement capacity. Now, a lot of this capacity will come in the form of solar farms and wind farms. We estimate that to replace 246 megawatts of baseload coal plant, we would need to put up around 1,000 megawatts of solar and 250 megawatts of wind. Now, we're not gonna stop there in terms of replacing the output with solar and wind on an intermittent or variable output basis, because that will have a lot of implications and make the grid even more challenging. It has some hidden cost to the grid. So therefore, what transition credits allows us to do is we will have a de facto financial support or subsidy from these transition credits or carbon credits to allow ACEN to accelerate the build-out or the scale-up of battery storage to be incorporated in various renewable energy power plants like solar plants. Battery storage today is still quite expensive. It's going to increase the price of electricity, and therefore the transition credits will allow us to do battery storage in an affordable manner. So it will really help accelerate our long-term strategy, which is to so-called hybridize our renewable energy plants, whether it's solar or wind, by incorporating energy storage and effectively have a dispatchable or reliable power that we can provide to our customers, and as well as use the grid efficiently and effectively.
I think you also will be able to address the potential impact of displaced employees of coal plants, no?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. Those are the the third and fourth uses of proceeds of the transition credits is to allow us to have a just transition, which is to ensure that the communities and the workers are taken care of and to ensure that no one gets left behind. That is an integral part of the transition credits design. And then last but not least is the ability to do proper decommissioning of the coal plant to ensure that this doesn't get repowered at some future date. So obviously we are doing this as part of the fight against climate change. The backdrop of all this is International Energy Agency, or IEA, has a position that in order for the world to keep to the 1.5 degree goal of keeping global warming at or below 1.5 degrees, we need globally, coal plants need to reduce emissions by 55% between 2022 and 2030. Now that is a very tall order, especially for countries in Southeast Asia, where we have a very large coal fleet. We are the fourth largest globally, and we have among the youngest coal fleet at less than 15 years of age, in a growing economy and a growing power demand. Just the other day, to illustrate, Philippines, in Luzon alone, power demand reached about 13.9 gigawatts in the system, which represented around 11% peak growth versus last year, which was stood at around 12.5 gigawatts. So there's definitely strong growth in markets like the Philippines and the rest in Southeast Asia. So it is quite challenging to accelerate the retirement of coal plants without mechanisms like transition credits to help ensure a just transition.
Thank you. Toji?
Mr. Chairman, that was the last question that we received. However, if we receive additional questions after this meeting, management will respond to these via email.
Thank you. We thank our stockholders for your questions and participation in today's meeting. The link to the audio and video recording of this meeting will be posted on our website. Stockholders may raise any issue, clarification, and concern about this meeting by sending an email to corsec.acen@acenrenewables.com, and our